What's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be showcasing a bunch of different automations to help you leverage the power of Smartlead webhooks. And the main three automations that we're going to be focusing on are notifications for email replies, thread replies, untracked replies. But keep watching till the end of this video as I'll be showing 10 additional automations that will help you leverage the frameworks that we will be speaking about throughout this video. Let's dive in. So a webhook is a tool that apps and websites use to communicate with one another in real time. And inside Smartlead, there's two types of webhooks that we can use. We have a Slack webhook and we have a regular webhook. Both of them are going to work very similarly, but the main difference is going to be that the Slack webhook will send a message directly to one of our Slack channels automatically, while the regular webhook would send the information to a separate tool such as make.com. We would then get to use that information to modify the data in a way that we like. In this scenario, I've modified the data to change how the notification looks to my preferences. But you can obviously do many other things, as I'll showcase in the later automations throughout this video. And so if you wanted to create a Slack webhook, the first thing that you would do is click on this URL right here, which is going to take you to this Slack page that will prompt you to choose a channel that you want to get notified in. In my case, I'm going to choose the testing channel and then I'm going to add it there. That is going to send a message that looks something like this, signifying that this webhook has been added to the channel. From there, there's going to be a bunch of different instructions that you can simply ignore as they're not super relevant for this particular use case. All you'll need to do is simply copy the URL of this webhook and then you'll paste it in this section right here. After that, you will give this webhook a name and then choose an event type that you want to be notified for. And so, for example, if a lead category is updated to information request, interested, and meeting request, we're going to send the data to this webhook, which will then post a message to this channel. And that's it. That's all you need to do if you wanted to keep this as simple as possible. But if you want to customize how the messages appear on Slack, or perhaps you want to send these messages to Gmail, you want to send them to a different tool to create a task perhaps, that's when you might consider using a regular webhook. And that would function very similarly to a Slack webhook. And so when using a tool like make.com, Zapier, etc., all you would need to look for is a webhooks module. From there, you would choose a custom webhook and then you would create one. In my case, I'm going to call this test, but you can obviously call this whatever you want. From there, you will copy the URL of that webhook and then paste it inside your Smartlead application. And it's the same process. We'll give this a name and we'll choose the same event type that we had chosen before. After this, I'm going to do a quick test to show you the type of data that you can expect to get on the other side. And so we've gotten all this data. We'll send a test to the webhook. And when we run this module only, we're going to be getting the data right here. And this is called JSON format, but that's not relevant right now. Just thought I'd share. But it's going to have all of this data on the individual lead whenever a lead category is changed. This is going to come in super handy whenever we're talking about the future automations. And so back to the main point of this video. You've learned what the difference is between a Slack webhook and a regular webhook. You've learned how to set up a webhook, and you've also learned how to create a test event. The next thing we're going to learn is how to create a notification for email replies that is customized to your own individual liking. And so I've got three different automations right here with varying levels of difficulty to help you get notified anytime a lead replies to your emails. Now, as you've seen, they can get very complex, but it doesn't have to be that way. This is really, really simple. And we're doing everything that we've done previously. We've got an incoming webhook from Make that we paste inside the Smartlead application right here. This is going to send the data over here, similar to how we did it like this. From there, we're going to be getting notified in any way that we choose. And so you can get notified inside Gmail if you wanted to. You can create a task inside your project management tool, or you can use an incoming webhook similar to the one that we've created here inside make.com to customize the message to your own individual liking. However, if you don't want to use an incoming webhook, you can also use something like this, which is the built-in Slack module to create a message. This is going to be simpler, but the main difference and why I prefer to use the incoming webhook as opposed to this is that this right here will send a message to your Slack channel as yourself, meaning you're not going to be receiving the notification. However, other people inside the channel will get a notification. When using an incoming webhook, this is going to be posting the message as a bot, meaning you will personally get the notification. And so if you work with a bunch of other people and you don't need to be notified yourself, you can use the built-in Slack module. Otherwise, I would recommend the incoming webhook. And using this incoming webhook, we're able to customize the text using Markdown format. And this right here, what I've created, this is a hyperlink. And so when looking at the message, this has a URL inside the text. And this is all of the Markdown fields that we can use. So we can create bold, we can create a hyperlink, and we can cross out the text. The next thing I want to show you is the different levels of complexity that you can create using these different automations. This right here is an automation that does the exact same thing as the automation that you've just seen. However, the difference here is that it allows you to post the messages dynamically across different channels. And so if you run an agency of some sort that needs to notify external users in different channels about the Smartlead events, then you might consider using something like this. What this leverages is a client database. And so we've got all of the client IDs from our Smartlead account, which we then map with other custom fields, such as the Slack channels, Stripe URLs, renewal dates, and anything else that we want. By the way, if you use Notion, Asana, ClickUp, or any of these popular project management tools, you're also able to create a client database. Once you've created this client database, you can use this notification to filter through the different client IDs. And by the way, where you find the client ID that we're using here is with the webhook payload. And so as I did mention, the webhooks are going to provide us with a bunch of information on the leads that have just changed. What we're looking for in this particular scenario is the client ID, which we will then use as a filtering value. And so once we've filtered for the client ID, we will get a return of a row that has all of this information on the specific client with that client ID. The main thing we're looking for, though, is the Slack channel, which we will use to send this message right here. By the way, if you use an incoming webhook, all you would need to do is simply add a comma to the text and add channel like this. This is going to work perfectly. And if you have a bunch of different clients, I highly suggest you build something like this. The next level above that is creating some sort of database for any of these notifications that you're going to be receiving. And so in our very first example, we're going to be getting updated and notified whenever a lead category is changed to one of these three. From here, you're able to create a database that looks something like this, which is going to hold all of the engaged leads. You can use this to create a database that has really cool reporting that you can leverage for many, many, many things. And this is an example of that database. But you can also use this for many other things. And so if you want to create a global block list, for example, anytime a lead unsubscribes, you might use an automation like this that adds them to a different table. And so that is how to get notified whenever leads reply to your emails. The next level above this that I want to show you is how to get notified whenever leads reply to your email threads. And this is going to be very similar to a regular email reply. However, the difference is in the event type, we're going to be choosing email reply. What this is going to do is notify us anytime a person replies to an email, whether it's positive, neutral, negative, or whether it's a thread or not a thread. But what we want to do is get notified specifically whenever it's a thread. And so that's where this automation is going to come into play. And so when running this once, I'm going to send a test to this automation. What's going to happen is that we're going to be sent a bunch of data, but it's not going to proceed to notify us. And so any of these replies that we're getting, unless they pass this filter right here, which says that the description must have reply to thread, we're not going to be notified. And what I'm talking about here is the content here. So when looking at the description, it says support@test.com replied to email 1 for campaign link insertion. And so if this was a replied to a thread, this would say support@test.com replied to thread, email 1 for link insertion. And so that is the main difference between the regular notification and the reply to thread notification. As a quick bonus, I want to show you how you can modify these notifications to look even better than what we've got here. What you want to use is a block kit. What this block kit does is found in the Slack application. And so if you were to create a message, you're going to have a link that says block kit builder. And so you can click on that link and it's going to send you to this page where you can use images, you can use buttons, you can use many different types of notifications. And all you would need to do is simply modify this code right here. And so, for example, if I didn't want it to say hello assistant and I just wanted it to say assistant or smart lead notification, I would simply change that here. And so as you can see, I've got Smartlead right here. You can modify this. It's super, super simple to do. It looks complicated, but it's not. And so once I've done that, I'm going to select all and paste it inside the Slack module right here. And inside this section right here, I can also paste the same code over here. And so that is how to get notified to an email thread. And as a bonus, I've shown you how to change your notifications using the block kit builder. The last thing I want to show you with the core automations for this video is how to get notified for any untracked replies. And so Smartlead has a really cool feature that allows you to see all of the replies that you're getting that are not within your main sequences. And so promotions, for example, that might be sent to you from people that you've never contacted from your Smartlead account, those would go here. Sometimes people reply outside of the thread. Those emails would go here. And this section is super, super awesome as it helps you keep track of all of those untracked replies, and sometimes you're going to find some gems, some positive replies that you might have otherwise missed. Now, there's going to be a lot of emails here, and so what you want to do is filter out the ones that are warm-ups and the ones that are promotions and things like that. And so in my case, I have a custom identifier for any warm-ups, and so all of the warm-ups are going to have this identifier, which is Smart Leads. From here, I would use the settings and I would block any keywords that have this Smart Leads section right here. once I've added this, anytime an email comes that is containing this keyword, I will not get notified for it. And so from there, we're going to be creating a notification for all of these untracked replies using a webhook that looks something like this. As you can see, I've chosen the event type here, untracked replies. And when sending a webhook test, we're going to be receiving all of this information, but the key thing we're looking for is the subject line, the content of that reply, and who the message is coming from. The reason for that is because this is going to be a very iterative process. We're going to be receiving a lot of false positives as this is starting out, and what we'll need to do is come to this page to block those keywords, subject lines, domains, etc. And so one of the ways that you can modify your messages is using the block kit builder as I showed. Obviously, this is super optional. You don't need to do this, but this is an example of what it looks like. So you've used the markdown format and we've modified the text to look like this. And so these buttons are what are going to allow us to create some sort of database of all of the subject lines that are invalid, all of the content emails that are invalid that we should block out. And so anytime you receive a message inside Slack, you can just click a button that says invalid, add it to a Sheets database, and then one day you get some time, and then you can come in here and block all of those keywords and subject lines. If that's too complex, you can simply put this URL right here, this URL. Actually, I think you're going to need a longer URL, but you can grab that URL and simply paste it inside one of the buttons. And so I'm going to put the URL for that button right here. And so that's going to work perfectly fine. And actually, I'll show you what it looks like as a test. And so this is how you can test it yourself. And so send it to the testing channel. And when we go in here, we've got an email. And when I click invalid, I don't think that link is going to work, but I guess it does. It does work. So that is notifications for email replies. Let me show you some of the bonus automations that you can build with all of the frameworks that I've shown you throughout this video. So when looking at the bonus automations, we'll notice that we're able to create tasks, create databases, add deals onto our CRM, and do a whole bunch of other things. But the main thing that powers all of this is the Smartlead webhooks and the triggers that we're able to use. And so right now, these are all of the different triggers. And so when an email is sent, there's a trigger that can happen that you can automate. When a first email is sent, email reply, unsubscribe, email bounce, all of these are going to have different use cases that you can create different automations around. And this page right here is going to give you some ideas to consider for these automations. One of them, for example, is when looking at this email open section, I saw someone creating a really interesting campaign. That campaign, they would send an email, and that email would have a typo in the content of the message. And so instead of saying message, for example, it would say massage, right? And anytime an email was open for the first time, this would trigger a webhook event. And so this is what powers it, email open. From there, they're going to be receiving a bunch of data similar to how we did here. And from there, they're going to use an additional Smartlead automation to reply directly to that email thread saying, oops, I'm sorry, that was a typo. And even though the email is automated, it starts to look more human because no one's going to actually automate something like that. And so that's an example of something I've seen. You can also add all of these leads to your CRMs using the webhooks that we're using. You can create an email block list. And so if you use Smartlead and different other tools, for example, anytime a lead bounces or a lead unsubscribes, you can have a block list on a Google Sheets database that you add all of these leads to. Because again, we have all of the data anytime the webhook runs. We've got their email, we've got their contact name, all of that key information allows us to do things like this. And so I hope this video was valuable. If you learned a thing or two about how to leverage webhooks and automations, please leave a like down below and leave a comment for what types of videos you would like to see, and we'll be happy to make those for you. Cheers!